I was the pilot. The engine power was at 0, and we were losing altitude. I had a very short time to react, and if I wanted to stay alive, I'd better make the right decisions. True story, and a great lesson. But before I tell you about my engine crisis at 10,000 feet, welcome to Mornings with Bishop Robert. I'll bet you're glad you can join me here instead of being in the aircraft that I was flying. You know, my goal is to introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know him and his word personally and better. So if our time together today speaks to your heart, let me invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. One thing's for sure, you want to grab a cup and lift it up because we're in for the ride of our life today. Oh boy, good stuff. Well, you may not have known that I hold a private pilot's license because it's actually been some years since I've been the pilot in command of anything. But the incident I'm referring to occurred while I was training for my pilot's license. I was flying along, doing the normal sorts of things I did during my lessons, when my instructor reached forward, pushed the throttle to 0, said, "You've just lost your engine. What do you do?" Well, first of all, let me tell you that I had read about what one does if they lose an engine. I mean, there's a procedure to be followed. You switch your radio to the international emergency frequency. You broadcast a mayday with your position, your altitude, and the amount of fuel in your tanks. That's so they know how many fire trucks to roll towards the crash site. But once that's been done, you immediately have to begin scanning the ground below as you try to find a safe place, or as safe a place as possible, to put down the aircraft. I mean, optimal choices would be a road or a very flat field. But you don't always have optimal choices available. Second, let me tell you that reading about handling an emergency and actually handling one are two very different things. Let's just say that my first attempt at surviving a lost engine wouldn't have gone as well as one would hope. But my instructor was there, he kept me alive, and he made me do it again and again and again until I got it right. Well, today's verse says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart." Now, BLUF, bluff, is a military acronym for bottom line up front. And it's used in many military communications in the intelligence world. They begin with the word bluff, and then they're followed by the most succinct sentence the data can be compressed into. It's not designed to be kind or graciously worded. It's exactly what it says. Bottom line, up front. So for example, I got a message on September 8th that began, "Bluff, Queen Elizabeth is dead." Now, multiple paragraphs followed with details and plans and all the other information, but bluff put everything one needed to know in 4 words. So here's the bluff on today's verse. Bluff, God is trustworthy. Now, of course, I could give you many more details. I could write for hours and hours and hours about the hows and the whys and give more examples than, well, frankly, anyone could possibly want to hear. But he's trustworthy. He's trustworthy when it looks like it, and he's trustworthy when it doesn't. He's trustworthy when you see the answer to your need appearing before your very eyes. And he's trustworthy when it appears that he's disappeared. You know, another pilot and training experience I've heard about comes from a pilot whose instructor told him to put the plane into a steep and extended dive. Well, he was totally unprepared for what was about to happen. But after a brief time, the engine stalled, the plane began to plunge out of control. And it soon became evident that the instructor was not going to help at all. Well, after a few seconds, which seemed like an eternity, his mind began to function again, and he was able to correct the situation and return to level flight, but at a much lower altitude. Well, immediately he turned to the instructor and began to vent his fearful frustrations on him. But the response of the instructor was profound. He very calmly turned to him and said, "Listen to me. There's no position you can get this airplane into that I cannot get you out of. Now, if you want to learn to fly, climb to 10,000 feet and do it again." That, my friends, is the lesson we need to learn as we trust God as well. Hear Jesus as he says to you, remember this, as you serve me, there is no situation you can get yourself into that I cannot get you out of. So trust me. Do as I say, and you'll be all right. Well, I'll tell you that I've proven that lesson true in my ministry many, many times over the years. And I messed up in many of my nosedive situations, as I'm sure you will. But in each one, I learned to trust a bit more. I learned to react a bit better. My pilot instructor's goal was to get me to the point where I could handle unforeseen emergencies myself. Thankfully, that's not God's goal. He never makes us handle things without him, his grace and his strength. All we need to learn is in the bluff that I shared earlier. God is trustworthy. When your life is facing a nosedive situation, you have to determine who you want to be the one calling the shots. Just remember, trust in the Lord with all your heart and follow his instructions. It's time to learn to fly. Hey, as we wrap up today, I want to ask you if you would help me introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know him and his word personally and better. So please like this video because it'll help more people see it. And then click follow or subscribe so that you and I can get together every day. I'll bet you've got a story of a nosedive trust situation in your life when God came through for you. Just pop that into the comments section. I'm sure so many folks would be encouraged by that. And then one more thing. Please share this video with a friend. Because as you do, it makes you part of the team that's sharing the love of Jesus Christ all over the world. Thanks for helping.